Well, everyone, I thought I'd give you a chance to see this apart before I put it back together. This is your PTO shaft coming out of the back of the tractor. So I just took it off of that. I had this even more apart. I just replaced the bearing. Here's the old one. It was pretty rusted up and old looking. Might be able to save it in some solvent or something, reuse for something else, but I put a new bearing on it. There is a snap ring on each side of the bearing, so that's what holds that in. In this housing, that is just sort of pressed in there a little bit. So I'm kind of talking about assembly, but when you first pull this whole assembly out, there is a shear key on this shaft. So as it's coming up through the tractor, that key snap ring, excuse me, sits against this here and keeps that shaft from coming out. So it's kind of deceiving a little bit, because when I was taking this apart, I was able to start to get it out, but then I was like, man, you know, something's holding me up. What is it? Well, it's this snap ring on the back side. So unfortunately, I'm going to need a new one, because this one's kind of rusted out looking. Yeah, so that's here. Interesting note, if you look on this shaft, there is this groove in it. I just found that kind of interesting. I figured that is for oil, because it keeps it lubricated in here. But a nice funny thing, I saw that on another part and it looked intentional, but yet wasn't sure. So that's what that's for. Also, what comes on the shaft is this rubber piece, a washer, and spring. Rubber piece actually looks pretty good, so I think I'll just put it back on. It doesn't feel too hard or anything, at least not to me. So your gears in this assembly, this gear here takes a Woodruff key, and you can see it on the shaft where that goes right there. So slide this gear on. Well, put that key in first, slide the gear on. Then this other gear is just sitting up here on that shaft. So yeah, just wanted to let you guys have a look before I put it back together. I haven't seen, I think, very many videos of these power troll assemblies and PTO shafts and all that apart, so I just thought I'd take a moment to show you guys. Everyone, just wanted to kind of give you a status update of what I've been up to and kind of going different directions on this tractor and things. So one of the last videos I had recorded was talking about this shaft, the Powershaft, coming through the back of the tractor, and I had said, well, when the shaft was in there and I took it out, that there was a snap ring on the back that prevented me from taking the shaft out, and that snap ring wasn't in very good condition. So I was looking up the part to replace it, and I could not figure out what part it was. And what I found interesting is the repair manual never said you had to remove a snap ring to pull this out. I never saw it per se on the parts diagrams. So I was starting to think it shouldn't be there. And then I did see on Facebook, on the two-cylinder page, somebody, I think a couple years ago, posted that they had the same issue. They were trying to get it out and couldn't get it out, and someone said, oh, there's a snap ring on the back. So I'm not really sure what the purpose is of the snap ring. To me, it's a benefit to be able to just pull it out if need be. I mean, what's really holding that shaft in is the cover with the 3 bolts that goes over this and covers this bearing. And like I said or shown before was you could pull the shaft out a couple inches before it hit that snap ring. So I really didn't see or don't see the benefit in it. So I think for now I'm going to take the chance and just not have it, unless as I go and put everything back together I see something different, because that snap ring went here. I do not plan on putting it back in. It just doesn't make sense to me. So that's where I'm going with that. So as you saw probably a second ago, I got this back on per the manual. I mean, you can put this spacer piece in first, put your gear in, you know, with the springs, the rubber piece and all that I had said before was on the shaft. Per the manual, you can actually put them in first, get this outer housing on, and then later we can put the shaft through it. One thing that really surprises me is there's no gasket between either of these two interfaces. I didn't see any in the parts diagram. There wasn't one on there before, so I was still using that aviation gasket maker. We'll see how well that works. I mean, if not, no big deal to take that back off, I guess. Not like we have to take the whole rear housing off or anything. So we'll see how well that works. Looking at these arms on the back. So looking at this whole assembly, here are kind of all the parts. These arms are going through this piston, and once you undo these bolts, which I assume sit in these grooves right here, you can pull these out. I was able to pull one out. I had to kind of pound the other one out lightly. The housing on the back end, so on this side here, here's looking at the cylinder housing. Yeah, pretty simple really. Your fluid goes in and out of this hole here as the cylinder pushes in and out. Let you guys, I don't know if you can see very well in there, but it's okay. I had to take a wire brush to it a little bit, clean it up. The piston, so kind of unique on these is they didn't use rubber seals, at least not on this one. This is a leather cap, this piece. So I went ahead and ordered a new one, waiting on it to come in. Just so you guys know, I'm an engineer, so sometimes I get intrigued at how things are made. Like you look at this connecting rod, so to speak. It's not like a cast piece, but it, you know, you can see looking at it. It's two bent plates welded together and a hole drilled in. So I just thought that was interesting, the way that was made, because I don't feel like you would see it like that very often, but unique way of doing things back in the day. Or I mean, you could do it today, but they'd probably make it in its own piece. So yeah, I'm gonna clean these up a little bit, wire brush them, clean up that spring especially, get some new grease on it. Oh, I forgot to mention when I was taking that piece off, this is the bearing on the right side of the tractor. So it's on this corner here. The manual said, oh, you know, when you take that off, the older style had some tension on it, so put a pipe wrench on it. Well, I wasn't sure what older meant, but obviously 1948 justified it being older. So you can see this cut out here. That interfaces with, still a little messy right now, but this end of the spring. So when you undo this, all of a sudden, if you don't have a pipe wrench on it, that tension on that spring will make this jump just a little bit. But yeah, so I assume when we go to put it on, we'll have to torque it a little bit to get it back. So yeah, just wanted to point that out. So right now, since I decided I'm not going to put that key on, I think we are going to attach this back onto the back of the tractor. Okay. Or actually first I got to put that cylinder housing back on. We'll get a new gasket made up for that, get that on. And from there, there's really no reason why this can't go back on the tractor. And hopefully I can get oil in this soon after I finish getting the gears in, because I gotta get the cover on to hold the oil in. Slowly coming together. Naturally, I wish I had a little more time to work on this, but got too many other projects, and even now I'm pushing them aside when I should probably be working on them. But hey, well, let's all admit this is more fun. So yeah, I'll have to show you guys next step once I get some of this done. Talk to you later. Alright everyone, I got this pin cup installed. Show you inside there. Got a new leather cup on it. Got it in. It took 2 people for me to get that in, because it just didn't want to go in by itself, so I had to kind of hold it while I had someone help me kind of tap it in a little bit side to side, one side or the other, in order to get it in. Obviously you don't want to booger up that cup, because that's your main sealant for that oil in there. So you can see I got oil all over back here. I'll clean that up. I did that because I was trying to soak that leather cup to get it a little softer and going in. I put on this PTO cover piece back here. There is an oil seal just inside there. I did not get a new one yet, and why I did that is, if you look, this cap is a little boogered up, so I know that won't be sticking around, and if I get a new one, I don't know if I'll be getting a whole new piece, because sometimes you see this as a whole unit, and I didn't want to put a new oil seal in a piece that I was going to get rid of. We'll see if it holds, and I mean, if not, it'll be replaced later. It's just 3 bolts, and it comes right off, so that's no big deal. So yeah, with this in, I'll push this in, and then from there we will get this bearing on. You can see it's just sitting there, but it's not bolted in. So we'll get that position, so then we can put the torque on it, because it's got that spring, as I mentioned, I think previously, return spring. Not all of the Bs I think had that, the manual said, but mine does. So yep, not sure I'm really posting the videos in order of what I'm working on, and that's because I'm kind of going all different directions. For example, I've got the Camshaft in at this point, but I can't do the rest. I was going to do that today, but I had a goofball moment and mixed up the numbers for the bearing on one of the bearings on the drive gear axle, or drive gear shaft, and I don't have the right bearing, so I can't do that. Naturally, it's a really expensive bearing. At least getting the John Deere part number. I haven't found a good local bearing place, or to see whether you can get bearings much cheaper. I've been sticking with the name brands, which probably is costing me a lot, like Hyatt, Timken, things like that. Again, since I plan on it being my tractor, I wanted the good stuff. I didn't really want to get off-brand, though. I'm sure it wouldn't really make a difference, as little of circulation and wear that these bearings would get. So yeah, I talked with the machinist. My engine is almost done. Sadly, he found a hole in the water jacket. Luckily, it's on the external side, so I think we have a way of fixing that. I'll talk about that in another video. But everything else looks good on it. He suggested I get a new camshaft because the lobes were looking a little bit of wear on them, but also it was just kind of rusted and somewhat pitted from this tractor sitting so long. So I got a new one from somewhere. It looks great, so that's what's installed. Got my carburetor. I got the correct one on this tractor. When I bought it, it had a DLTX 107U, which isn't the original for this particular tractor. So I broke down and bought the correct one. So we got that. Still haven't ordered or figured out what to do with the magneto. Same thing. The magneto that was on this was a Wyco C, which is from the older Bs. Should have a Wyco X. I'm thinking about just breaking down and getting the correct Wyco X magneto. So those are kind of the big things still involved. I'm working on the brakes. You can see part of them there. That's one of them. One sitting outside, soaking in oil. And then also the fan shaft and pulley assembly. Got to work on that. Get that back together. So I'm getting pretty excited because it's starting to. Things are starting to roll. Literally, shaft and gears and everything. So it just feels like it's coming together. And other than the clutch pulley and the fan shaft, those are the only two things really that I need to take apart per se and figure out what I need. Otherwise the motor and just about everything else is just a matter of putting it back together. Since it's not even the new year yet, I plan to get this thing running if I can, just kind of temporarily, you know, put the frame rails on, put the radiator back on. I haven't taken the radiator apart yet. It still had fluid and things in it when I bought it, so I'm hoping that'll be okay. But hook it all up and get it running, since I know I won't be ready to paint until spring. Then I can hear that wonderful popping sound. But before we're ready to paint and know that everything's good, do leak tests and things like that, and then I'll just take some of it back apart to paint. I won't paint it all together. So yeah, good times. So hope you all have a good New Year's, or whenever you're watching this video, and catch you next time.